Hello, everyone. Hi, everyone. Welcome. Great to see so many of you online. We will get started straight away, if that's okay, because we have a little bit of introduction to do before we get to the really important stuff, to be honest. And that is for me to start by introducing myself. My name is Bronwyn Clark. I'm the CEO of the National Growth Areas Alliance and really pleased that you could all be with us here today. I would like to acknowledge that I am meeting you from the lands of the Bunurong Boonwurrung people out in southeast Melbourne. I'd like to acknowledge and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging, and particularly this week in National Reconciliation Week. I think it's important for us all to reflect on that theme of bridging now to next and the role that we can all play in reconciliation with our First Nations friends and compatriots. So welcome, everyone. I would also like to acknowledge before we start that we have quite a few representatives from our National Growth Areas Alliance member councils online with us today, including some councillors, and I particularly like to acknowledge them. I would also like to welcome anyone who from outside our NGAA community. We have some fantastic organisations represented right across the country and some internationally as well, so that's really exciting. And this is a really important moment for us as an alliance to start looking at how we can share the best practice that is coming out of our member councils and to share some of the research that we've been involved in. So for those who may not know too much about the National Growth Areas Alliance, we are a group of local governments from across Australia's growth areas. It's pretty explanatory, but what that means is we are a leadership of councils who are all experiencing really rapid population growth, predominantly with greenfield development, and all located on the outer edges of Australia's greater capital cities, outer metropolitan areas. And what we do is we try and influence policy at the federal government level so that when new communities are being built, new economies are being developed, that we can try and influence the way that our cities evolve and grow and how our infrastructure is planned and delivered and how our communities can function better, reach their potential and really play an even greater role than they already do in Australia's economy, productivity, society. So that is our role. We underpin our advocacy with a really comprehensive research program, with a really comprehensive policy platform built on evidence and those research findings. And we also do a lot of member engagement. So it's really about learning from each other, connecting across municipal and state boundaries, and making sure that this fantastic opportunity we have as growth area councils in building new communities and establishing whole suburbs in what were previously vacant parcels of land, that we can all learn from each other and do the best for the people who will live there. So welcome to this webinar. I will introduce the rest of the NGAA team who will then run the program today. So firstly, introducing Dr. Anne Herney, our National Research and Policy Lead, who is charged with running our research program, does a fantastic job of that, and also then bringing all of that into our policy platform. So whatever is happening out there in the big wider world of research, we can tap into that and it all informs our advocacy. So welcome, Anne, and thanks for the role that you'll play today in guiding us through this discussion. And then I'd also like to introduce Michelle Jack, our National Communications Lead, who will be really managing the conversation, I suppose, managing the questions, which you can put into Q&A, and then we'll finish up with Michelle just taking us through a couple of actions out of this session and telling us about a few things coming up and some next steps. So without further ado, welcome everyone, and I will hand over to Anne to start the webinar.
Thanks, Bronwyn, and extend my welcome to everybody as well, and thank you for attending. Our purpose in providing these research and practice webinars is to both bring together the most recent research that we draw on for our policy, but also to learn from our colleagues, members who are in the process of applying that research to their practice. And I think that that's what makes NGA really unique, because we draw on not just on the research, but on the expertise that is within our membership. Today we're looking at two aspects of social connection, and our themes for our research webinars are drawn from the National Urban Policy, and they relate specifically in today's session on livability and equity, and creating cohesive and inclusive communities, as stated in our National Urban Policy, that we hope will continue and be implemented in this term of government. Urban places should be inclusive, promote social cohesion, and foster connection amongst individuals and communities. And we're very pleased to have our guest speakers who are doing just that and giving us advice on how we can do this in our own local areas. Professor Jane Farmer, who as Director of the Social Innovation Research Institute led the Social Connections Research Program, and will be speaking first and talking about the toolkits that have recently been launched. And colleagues Ezgi Sahin and Sopieta from the City of Whittlesea have been working on developing their Community Insight Study, which is a program of rolling community engagement. And we'll have an opportunity to hear from both presentations. There'll be an opportunity to ask some questions directly to the presenters following their presentations. And then after that, we'll open it up to a more broader discussions. If you, as Bronwyn suggested, if you put your questions in the Q&A, that helps us guide the discussion. And then at the end, if you want to join in the discussion, feel free to put up the little hand thing icon to join in the discussion at the end. We'd first like to introduce you to Professor Jane Farmer, who is Professor of Health and Social Innovation at Swinburne University, and she also works as an independent consultant. Jane specialises in place-based social connection and how to activate it through activities, infrastructure and digital technologies, which is, I think, a space that we're moving rapidly towards in our connection with communities. Jane has 30 plus years of research into how communities function, their well-being, mental health and social connection. She has authored 5 books and more than 200 peer-reviewed journal articles. So we're very pleased to have Jane share her expertise with us today. Thank you, Jane.
Well, thanks very much. It's lovely to be here, and it's great to be working with you guys. Michelle's going to drive this for me because it's just too complicated for me to do more than one thing. So I'll tell you when to leave. All right, so today I am going to give a bit of a whirlwind tour of activating social connection. I pay my respects to the traditional custodians of the unceded lands on which we live and work, and acknowledge their elders past and present. And next, Michelle. And so what are we going to cover today? a quick explainer of the recent research that we've done on social connection in outer metro suburbs of Melbourne. A quick overview of how we understand social connection as it's operationalized for practice. I'll give a quick overview again of some of the tools that we've co-designed with practice and community and how they were built, and then zoom in on some key resources. And as Anne said, there'll be time for questions at the end. I just wanted to say that I guess I'm kind of totally immersed in all of this stuff. And if as I'm going along, you're like, what is she talking about? Because I haven't provided sufficient context, I apologize, but I hope it will become clear at some point in the talk or when you ask questions. So on we go. All right, so we started working on the programme around social connection back in 2016, which seems like a long time ago now. When we started the Social Innovation Research Institute, and we met up with people from Australian Red Cross, and they talked about all the different programs that they run. Some of them are about resilience for hazards, bushfires, etc. Some of them are for migrants, social inclusion, and some of them are about older people getting phone calls for being lonely, and so on and so forth. And they basically said, look, all of these programs are really about social connection, aren't they? And we kind of agreed that they were, but they were all used in different language, etc. So that was when our projects on social connection basically started. And the idea was really to kind of gather all the information that was already out there about social connection and operationalize it for practitioners to use. And then, look, over time, we've worked with lots of different organisations. We've applied our social connection work in lots of different avenues, including for businesses, and applied it to things like mapping and auditing what social connection infrastructure is in different suburbs. And we've also done a lot of work in ageing, having produced specific tools for social connection in residential aged care. The latest project that we have just finished was set in outer metropolitan suburbs, specifically with City of Casey, City of Whittlesea, and Wyndham City Council, and a bunch of not-for-profits and humanitarian organisations. And so most of the information that I'm going to talk about today has kind of come out of all of the work in that project. Next slide. Okay, so everything that I'm going to talk about is basically based on this social connection model. And the social connection model is really kind of, the idea of it is to bring together information about social connection from the vast amount of information that's out there. It's kind of like, these are the basics, and if you know this, you can get to work. So I'm going to talk about each of these parts of the social connection model in more detail in the next 3 slides, but really just to say that on the left-hand side, that part of the model is all about an individual and how they navigate and get connection and what it means to them. And on the other side of the screen, the sort of orange pyramid, that's really about what the community needs to provide for social connection to happen. And the piece in the middle is really about how individuals connect with the infrastructure and community, which is really what we kind of want to make happen. Okay, next slide. So this part of the model of social connection is about individuals, and essentially it kind of lays out that social connection requires individual investment. So it involves time, it involves, I guess, emotional labour and emotion, and it involves a kind of willingness to give and take. And different people have got different amounts of these things, particularly time. And so some people have got more time for social connection, some people have got less time, and some people have got time at different times of the day when perhaps things aren't available. etc. So just helps to think about that. The bit in the middle is the circles, and that's based on a lot of work by evolutionary psychologists and brain scientists about how people's brains are actually set up to deal with their relationships. And this work basically shows that people have close connections. They then have kind of a layer of social allies who are the kind of people that will give them support and may lend them money or give them advice. And the next layer out is about the different communities that we belong to as individuals. So we might belong to a work community or a volunteering community, but we might also have different hobby groups that we belong to. There might be a bunch of people we meet at the dog park, etc. And these are all our communities that are kind of they work to give us our identity or our different identities and make us feel that we belong. And the outer layer is really about feelings of fitting into community. So as you wander about the community, do you see people you know? Are there kind of people you smile at, etc.? And these things make you feel accepted in community and a part of community. And so then the benefits from all of this are, there's so much literature about this if you're interested, but the benefits are kind of real physiological and mental outcomes. You can get help, obviously, of different kinds, and the feelings of belonging. And all of this, I guess, is negotiated through a lens of the quality of these relationships. So again, it kind of isn't rocket science to understand if you've got better quality relationships, you're going to have more resources from your connections. But also there's a lot of research to show that stability of relationships is important. So people who are living in precarious situations, who can't develop stable relationships, are at risk of vulnerability. Next. Okay, so I did say that on the other side, this part of the model is about what communities need to provide. And so essentially we'll start off with foundations. So if we're looking at community infrastructure, what do we need at the community level for things like planners or area designers or whatever? Fundamentally, we need communities that are safe and accessible and attractive. So in our recent study about our metro suburbs, it was absolutely uncanny the amount of times that people just went, oh, I go there, it's safe and it's attractive. And so I think attraction and safety are kind of linked with each other. Like if it looks good, it's well maintained, people are happy to go there, and it makes them feel that it's safe. Next level up is about spaces and places. So look, we can think of a community needing a cafe and a library and a community centre, but essentially we can narrow that down to thinking about, well, how do people meet each other? Well, they meet each other by bumping into each other, or they're kind of organised to go to a meeting. If they're bumping into each other, the more frequently they see each other, the more likely to recognise each other and over time say hello and get to know each other. And things like bumping into each other and frequency of meeting, they have to happen at that kind of very local level, because otherwise they're not going to keep meeting the same people. They're going to meet all kinds of different people. So there's there are ways to kind of build in social connection into our design. Then again, it's very similar in terms of activities. So with activities, if you can build into your activities an element of negotiating or problem solving, where people are actually focused on solving a problem or exploring a problem, they will get to know each other without that kind of awkwardness of like, oh, we're all in a room and we're meant to get to know each other. And then finally, community connectors, which are very fashionable right now. I think everybody's got onto the idea of social prescribing, link workers, community facilitators, navigators, and so on. People in the community who actively try to connect people with each other. So that's our model, and you'll have noticed that I haven't defined social connection because it's just too complicated. All right, forgot about this bit. This is the socialization process. And again, if you think about your own experiences of maybe moving to a new community or going to a new hobby group or whatever, Initially, you are going to feel uncertainty and discomfort, perhaps to the extent that you really just don't want to try anything new, and that's where connectors can obviously be really helpful for taking you along. But then gradually over time, people get to know each other, they get emotionally involved with their community or with their group, they start to feel belonging, they become established as a person in that group or community. But this, I guess what this process is meant to show is this takes a really long time. And we shouldn't underestimate how long it takes for people to go from feeling nervous and uncomfortable to feeling part of the community. Next slide. Okay, so in the current project, we basically gathered lots of information from people who are living in Melbourne's urban fringe suburbs. People from all different backgrounds, culturally and linguistically diverse backgrounds, and all different age groups, people who are working, people who are retired, people who are working part-time, and so on. And we coupled that with the existing evidence about social isolation, loneliness, and social connection. And we took all of that evidence into co-design groups that also involve practitioners and community members. We sought to design resources that would fill gaps and wants that practitioners and community members thought would be helpful to activate social connection. And then we produced this practice-ready social connection toolkit, which is available out there now on the internet, as so many things are, and it's open access and free, so you can use it. And we also have obviously done lots of academic things, but I'm not going to tell you about those today. So next slide. Yeah, so in the social connection toolkit, there's a number of different resources. There's what to do about digital social connection. There's measurement resources, program evaluation resources. There's Social Connection 101, which is kind of a basic, very basic guide to social connection. How to plan for and design for connection, and another guide which is about activities to build in for connection. Next. And this is what they look like. So you can access these, as I say, on this website below. You can download them. You can. They make nice little booklets. None of them are long. They all kind of, as a rationale to them, they all kind of fit together. And there are obviously more resources there than I've talked about, such as one specifically designed by our partners, NEMI, around an individual's guide to how they might experience social connection and to help them to work on their own social connection, I guess. Okay, so now I'm going to talk through a few of these very briefly. So this first one, Social Connection 101, is really the basic information you need to understand social connection from an operational perspective. So it's not theoretical or deep or academic. It's basically about, okay, what do I need to know about social connection to make it happen? It's got lots of diagrams. It has a set of kind of myth busters that can be discussed in groups. And a lot of our organisational partners have used this resource in community discussions. Often they've put it on a ring binder and they'll just go through the different pages of it in community discussions, and it really helps communities to think about what they might need to do for social connection and what are the gaps and what are their strengths and so on. Next one. This one is about placemaking for social connection. So this really focuses in on what that's community social connection infrastructure. So what social connection needs places to happen, obviously. So how can you design a social connection into places so you can ratchet up their power to help people connect? This resource also explains how social connection links with some of those other outcomes that planners are often trying to get, which is, they talk a lot about social capital or social inclusion. So I'm just going to move around a bit to make the lights come on in my office. Thank you. It explains the kinds of places needed, bumping spaces, frequency, etc., and what kinds of places can afford these, like cafes, libraries, etc. It explains how these different places operate to help social connection happen. and you can use it in planning and designing, but also use it with communities in participatory planning exercises. Next. Right, this one's about digital social connections. So in our project in outer metro suburbs, we did find that a lot of practitioners were quite wary of digital social connection. So they kind of said, oh, we don't do a lot with that. We don't really know what to do. We have a lot of reservations about getting involved in that space. But obviously, people who live there are using digital social connection a lot. And as humans, we have kind of adapted and adopted digital means of connecting into our daily life. So although these things are often talked about separately, the digital social connection is just so integrated with, I'm sure some of you are sitting there dealing with some texts while you're listening to my incredibly interesting talk. So we're all working in a digital world. And so essentially this is a kind of guide for practitioners about what they can do about digital social connection. And it really just explains some simple steps that could be taken, such as like, don't reinvent the wheel yourself, don't develop your own app necessarily, but look at what people are already using and kind of build into those platforms that people are already using, perhaps working with community groups. And I'm sure some of you are already doing this. The other thing we did find in our project, though, was that digital skills support and kind of courses and access to ongoing support and education are really vital. There's a lot of people we found who had lack of finance to buy data, and also had quite low digital literacy skills. So one person I can think of in particular said, look, I get all my services, they come through, they're in emails, but honestly, I don't know how to open my emails. So occasionally I have to go down to the library to find someone to help me. So this is just a really important way to help people keep involved in the world. All right, next. Okay, then obviously there's a massive amount of interest in measurement, and we have two measurement tools. This one is about a program evaluation toolkit. Essentially, this allows you to measure the social connection effects and outcomes and impacts of your programs. So a program might be, I don't know, a set of gym classes, a yoga class, a mums and bubs group, an older people's group, etc. This was designed and tested with Whittlesea Council. It gives step-by-step information on what to do. It gives a set of actual questions. Lots of people are actually using this program evaluation toolkit now, we know. And I guess if it was used across programs by different councils and other services, they would have a kind of standardized way to understand and compare across programs for their effects on social connection. Next. And this one's about measuring at population level. So we developed a set of, I hesitate to use the word questionnaires because I think everybody recoils at that word, but for measurements on population level, and some councils have used these in their health and well-being surveys. The measures have been validated with thousands of Australians through panels. We find that they're actually better than existing loneliness and connection measures in associations with well-being. And they cover a number of aspects of social connection. So they cover structural aspects of social connection, which is around the numbers of different types of relationships, the amount of time you spend with them and the frequency of these. They cover resources that you get from relationships. They cover feelings that you get from relationships, like belonging, feeling connected, and so on. And the questions cover quality. So they cover satisfaction with your relationships. And there are long, medium and short forms of these questions. So they can be used for intensive studies about social connection, if that's all you want to find out about, or the short and medium forms can be incorporated into more general population surveys. Next. All right, so if you have no time, we've summed it all up in 7 keys to connection, which is also available on that website I told you about. We just did this because so many practitioners told us they didn't have time to read anything and they just wanted something on one page. So essentially this just lays out that the most important things you can focus on is having places where people can meet each other, having people who can facilitate connection, having groups that involve multiple ways of participation and multiple types of activities. And when we say groups, I think look at churches. They are so great at this, having different ways to be involved and also different ways to communicate. As I said before, problem solving and interactive activities can be really great for helping people to meet each other. Next slide. Food we found was a particularly good way of getting people to meet each other and start discussions. Social media and digital tools. Think about, as I've said, digital connection, especially for those with challenges to connect face-to-face due to disability or ill health, being distant from each other or having long and antisocial work hours. And finally, people need to know about these events and programs and activities. So a lot of people said they just find it really difficult to find out about local activities. I'm sure people have said that to you before, but these are our 7 keys to connection. And finally, what to do next? Okay, so you've listened to me going at like 100 miles an hour through all of this stuff. Hopefully some words have connected with you. Please connect with the website and use the free downloadable co-designed and tested resources. If you want something more intensive, do get in touch for a tailored workshop, although we will have to charge for those to cover presenter costs, and that's my email address there. And thank you to Anne, Bronwyn and Michelle for facilitating me to be here. Hopefully there's something in that for everyone. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Jane. That's a fantastic overview of an enormous amount of work. I can see the little happy clappy things going on there. It's from my point of view, like just an enormous amount of really grounded and robust tools that that councils can tap into. But I think there's a few takeaways in my mind, and I'm happy for people to put in questions or comments in the Q&A. I guess it sort of reinforced the importance of, like, we talk about social infrastructure and we can do the numbers of what's where and that sort of thing, but for our communities, which are the newest communities in Australia, they people just brought together in new developments. I think you're sort of really underscoring the importance and highlighting the importance of those opportunities to meet and to connect, and the importance of also where councils can facilitate that, both through the physical design and planning of those spaces, but equally of bringing people together through the services that councils provide, whether that's in the local library or outreach or toy libraries, all of those things that and sort of imaginative things that people do. I know when I was working at Penrith Council, and I think they still do this, the Village Cafe was simply well, not simply, it was a great initiative where council took out tea and coffee, set up a trestle table and a little tent thing for in areas where there was basically no shops, or where people are fairly isolated and in the more remote places. And it was a way of just bringing in together and then inviting the services there to those village cafes where people could have a cup of tea and a chat. Often people who'd go there would be older people, but I was just also listening to a report on the radio about young people from a young person's point of view, and apparently young people in Australia now are the most lonely. And that was, I guess, getting to my question of this digital versus physical. How do you see one or the other, or how can we make them complementary? Because obviously young people, if they're lonely, but they're also the most digitally engaged. So how do we sort of bridge some of those sort of dichotomies of, everything being digital, but also then needing the physical?
Do you want me to answer that now?
Yeah, why not?
I don't want to hog the time.
It was just the start of what we do have some questions coming in now, but it was just starting it off with a big blow.
Well, look, I mean, my sort of feeling about, I get annoyed with people who just want to measure the levels of loneliness that people have, because I don't think that's terribly constructive. And actually, there's studies that have showed that people saying they're lonely is contagious. So if you say on social media, or you say to your friends that you're lonely, then it spreads. It's an emotion and it spreads. And so I think that all these surveys about loneliness are a little kind of overdone at times. But look, my other feeling about young people is that they have a different life experience, right? And everybody goes with the culture that the sort of social culture that they're embedded in. And so, yeah, people do go with there were people in our study who basically worked ridiculously long shifts and antisocial hours at places like McDonald's and whatever. And they said when they went home at night, they contacted people online who lived in the UK, the US, Canada, blah, blah. They were their best friends, right? And they thought they'd never meet these people, but they were amazing and they gave them tremendous support and blah, blah. And it's like hard to mess that up, because that's a young person culture scenario going on there, right? And they just found it really hard to find any time, I guess. Their friends then physically, their friends lived in other parts of Melbourne, so it was hard to access them without, they actually talked about social connection with their friends being like some kind of amazing event that you had to have quality time for. So it was just kind of like, wow. And then I think with older people, as I said, I think last time we met up, I mean, older people often characterized as being lonely as well. But if we think about it, they also have a lot of time, or they tend to have more time on their hands than working people. And they also have much more kind of life experience. And they also have kind of moved from being absorbed with different things in their life to feeling that they want a feeling of kind of empathy with their community often, right? So it's like people are looking for different things at different life stages, and they have different time available and different trade-offs. So I think we need to look at these things in a slightly more nuanced way, which is like a classic academic thing to say. So I apologize.
You're sort of on the same track. Bronwyn is saying that she's interested in cross-cultural connections. So, and any advice on engaging multicultural communities in the toolkits?
Yeah. Look, I think that's a really good question. There isn't one that says, this is about multicultural, connection. But I mean, I think if we think about all of the kind of challenges to multicultural connection, like people move to a suburb often because there are other people from their culture there. And so a sort of critical mass of their culture might build up in that suburb. We did find people who were quite separated from their culture, and they were often felt lonely and isolated. So I think great things to look at here are things like, and I don't want to bang on about church. I'm not a religious person myself, but I think if you strip out the kind of ideology from religions and look at what they're doing it's so clever, right? I mean, they have all kinds of events. They have even if you're working all the time, you can still be involved. They have things online. They have special interest groups. They have all kinds of supports if people, you know, are short of money, or they have food banks and so on. And I think just looking at some of these examples of, I don't know, we struggled to figure out what to call these things. Institutions is what we ended up calling them, but like sports clubs similarly are quite good at this. Yeah, I mean, with multiculturalism, I think these things where people, like I said, the problem solving, negotiating, etc. type of activities where you get people in a room, and I even think, why, you know, we could do this in terms of like, imagine what our community might be like in 30 years, where I think often people don't want to run things as they're like, it sounds like we're going to do something if we run an event, you know, like, but if they are kind of imaginative events about your place, then those negotiating and problem solving things are spaces where people can meet and find out about each other and find out that other cultures aren't scary because they're looking at something else.
Mm-hmm.
I'll shut up. Shut up now.
No, that's great. Thanks, Jane. And in fact, that's a perfect segue to our next presentation, because one of the challenges for councils is actually reaching out and getting feedback from their community and engaging the community to provide information about what would work and what wouldn't work in their area. And a great example of that is the Community Insight Study, which colleagues Ezgi Sahin and Sopay were about to present. I'd just like to introduce them. Ezgi is the Unit Manager of Advocacy and Community Research at the City of Whittlesea, leading a high-performing team to develop meaningful insights through programs such as the Community Insight Study and advocating for the community. She has a background in the non-profit sector in Australia and overseas, so it's good to have a global perspective on things. And the grassroots experience to her work, and is passionate about using data and community voice to inform decision making. And Dr. Sopay can't quite get there, but try hard with your name, sorry, Sopay, is the Senior Research Officer at the City of Whittlesea. With over 10 years experience in social research. She holds a PhD from the University of Melbourne and specialises in designing, conducting and managing research projects that explore community perceptions, behaviours, attitudes and decision making. So welcome, Ezgi and Sopay. I'll hand it over to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Anne, for the intros. Hi, everyone. As I mentioned, I'm Ezgi Sahin and I'm presenting today with Dr. Sopay Thar, who's our Senior Research Officer at Whittlesea. And if we go to the next slide, I also just want to start by acknowledging that the rich Aboriginal history of the lands that we meet on and the Wurundjeri Willem clan and Tamarong people as traditional owners of the lands within the City of Whittlesea, and acknowledge that sovereignty was never ceded. So my section today is to give a bit of a background on the research, why we do it, who Whittlesea is. I know we often start these presentations assuming everyone is from Melbourne. I know not all of you are, so I won't be an arrogant Melburnian. I'll introduce us in the context of the country. As mentioned, we are also a growth area council. We're up roughly in the north of Melbourne. We've got our population growing to around 360,000 by 2041. And it's our municipality is a mix of established suburbs in the south, some growth corridors that have already built up, some that are currently in their early growth development stages, and then a rural area in the north. So really diverse population, really diverse engagements with the population as well when we're trying to survey them, and each kind of cohort with its different challenges. The next slide, just a bit of a background on our research. So the Community Insights Study is effectively an evolution of the household survey, which many other councils will be quite familiar with. The City of Whittlesea has done the household survey for a long time now. We've got data dating back to 1997. It was previously a door-to-door technique, so it was done in-house. We had researchers go out. Around 2015, that shifted to be outsourced, and then moved to a 2-year frequency as well. And then, of course, like everyone, we had the disruption of COVID, so everyone had to rethink the way they do things, and that's when we explored the mail-out surveys as well. So that was the first time that we tested that. It was a very small sample, had to be topped up with door-to-door. It wasn't the best data quality that we'd experienced, so we're quite fortunate. We've got a lot of brilliant people on our team with strong research backgrounds. They kind of went to the drawing board and thought, how can we do this differently? And that's kind of when Community Insights was born. We piloted it late 2023. It was, and I won't go into this too much because Sophie is going to talk about the methodology a bit later to you, but we piloted it by using mail and email survey methodologies, and then went to a full wave launch for 3 waves across a 12-month period. So if we go to the next slide, this is just a bit of strategic context, I guess. Effectively, the survey serves, it's replaced the household survey, as mentioned, but it also serves us in collecting data around our goals and how we're performing as an organisation towards our vision of 2040 Whittlesea. I've got to the right there, like the 5 key goals that we have. And there's a bit on social connection across connected communities and livable neighbourhoods. So I've just put those in a bit more detail there. But yeah, it's a tool for us to collect data and measures for these goals outside of things like ABS and other trusted data sources that we also lean on. On the next slide, just a very quick overview of the questionnaire design. So as I mentioned, we do have 3 waves. They're quite comprehensive. These are the sorts of things that we ask in each wave. Focusing on the theme of social connection, there's things like people's community connection and support, experience of discrimination, how people participate in the community around the social and civic participation survey. So if they get involved in decision making, if they attend events, if they volunteer, if they're part of any groups. And then in the health and wellbeing, I know Jane mentioned the loneliness question, which she's not a fan of. We do actually ask loneliness, but we also ask a number of other questions around that as well. And I think Sop will go a bit more into how we're kind of connecting in with some of Jane's tools into our future iterations as well. So we've got a short video to play after this that kind of gives you a bit of an overview. It was developed for the community to understand what Community Insights is. So if they receive the survey and they have questions or they want to know more, they can watch this. We also use it internally to inform our organisation. But I'll let us play that and then hand over to Sophie, who will take you through a bit of the methodology and some of the iterative improvements we've had as we've come up with different challenges, the engaging cohorts. So if we can play that, please, Michelle.
What makes a community a great place to live? Well, that's where you come in. The Community Insight Study helps the City of Whittlesea better understand residents' experiences, like yours. This program is designed to help us gain a deeper understanding of changes in our community over time to ensure our local communities remain a great place to live. Through 3 surveys a year, we gather insights into key aspects of community life. With your contribution, we can better understand the needs of our community now and into the future. So, here's how it works. Step 1. If you're randomly selected, you'll receive an invitation by mail or email with a unique code for your household. Step 2. Scan the QR code or click the link in the email to open and complete the survey. If online isn't your preference, please give us a call and you can do the survey over the phone. You can also choose to complete the survey in your own language. Once you've completed the survey, your input will help us better understand what our community are experiencing and track progress toward our shared community vision. Your insights will guide future planning to help shape policies, projects and services for our community. Participation in the study is entirely voluntary, and your responses will remain anonymous and confidential. Together, we can ensure the City of Whittlesea remains a great place to live for everyone.
everyone. Thanks, Eski. So I'll just touch base on the methods that we use. So in terms of the method, we normally use the rates data, which we get from the State Revenue Office, and also the NAR, which is the Name and Address Register. And we also combine that with the pet registration data. So we get this whole big data set, and then we do a bit of data cleaning, which is basically just removing the exclusion list. And we normally get the exclusion list like from residents who contact us from our previous survey saying they don't want to be part of the survey, so we exclude them. And we also have an opt-out list. An opt-out list is the ones that when customers call through our customer service and use some of council services, they have to do a survey and they have an opportunity to opt out from those surveys. So we have a list of residents that wants to be opt out, so we exclude those residents as well in our survey. And another thing that we do is we also remove the addresses which are still in vacant land and are still under construction with the help of our GIS team. So we exclude those as well. And then after that, we would attach a DPID, which is just a unique number for post mailing purpose. And once all is done, the data is normally we use random sampling, stratified based on gender, suburb, and home ownership, just so that we have a even representation across different suburbs. And then we divide our sample into 3 equal samples for the community insight study. And then we also have another survey that we, which is the annual customer satisfaction survey, which is a state-mandated survey, which I'm sure all councils would have to do that. So we also leave a smaller sample size for that survey as well. And also, there's another randomization that we do with the mail out that goes through, which is the in-house selection method. So if the residents receive a letter, they will receive, in the letter, we would have it say it's either the person in your household with the last birthday or the youngest person or the oldest adult. So there's a bit of an extra randomization that we do for the mail surveys that people receive. Next slide, please. So as for the reporting, we do Power BI reports for each wave, which is mainly used internally. And because we collect the measures and indicators needed for the Whittlesea 2040, some of the results are published in our annual reports and other strategic reports. And we also have a brief summary on our website, along with the little fact sheets that you can see down here for the community, just so that they know these are what we hear from them, so that we are sharing the data back with our community as well. Next slide, please. Oh, yeah. So this is just a snapshot of the finding from one of our waves, which was done roughly last year. So which shows the frequency of contact with family and friends across different methods that we use. So we have questions around how often they meet with family members through text or in person or via phone, and also the nature of the relationship with their neighbors. And you can see here in the below, we can see that over 50% of our respondents agree or strongly agree that they could turn to the neighbors for help, and they chat with them more than just saying hello, which is great. And taking on board what Jane has mentioned, we are also hoping to add an extra layer of questions which measures the satisfaction and maybe how positive the relationships are to add on to our future surveys. Next slide, please. So as for continuous improvements, since we started, so we've introduced the community insight branding so that there's so that more other community members are more have more trust and reliable in our surveys. We do a lot of comm campaigns, which is in different social media platforms, and we do through radio, media release. We do a lot of comms campaign. And since then, we've also had community members review our questionnaire so that our questionnaires are simple and easy to read in plain language. So we've been doing that. And also we've started using targeted envelopes for renters, because we can see from our method, we mainly use data from the rates, and the data that we council normally have is mainly home owners. And we find out that normally renters don't normally open the letters that they receive from the council. So we try to do some targeted envelopes, targeting at renters, and also targeted sampling approaches. Next slide, please. Yeah. So this is one of the things that we've done to increase youth participation. So since the very first time we started, you can see here, we had a total of 18,662 responses, but we only got 27 young people doing the survey, which are aged between 15 and 24. So for wave 2, we ended up using a social media campaign via a registration survey. So we have social media ads going, and then young people would have to register for our survey. And what we found with that method was we had a lot of young people registering for the survey, And then once they register, they'll receive an email in their inbox to do the survey, but they don't go back to this email to click on the survey. So we find that a bit like challenging through that. So we didn't get much on wave 2. So on wave 3, we still continue the targeted social media ads, and we try to distribute flyers where young people mainly go to like youth hubs, like libraries, and we also shared it with our youth council. And the youth team also shared with some of the young people in their programs. And we also shared through Staff Matters, which encourages like staff members who are living in the city of Whittle to encourage their kids over 15 to do the survey. And that way we actually jumped up to 68, which is not too bad. And then like for our previous wave, we with the help of our youth team, we started engaging with schools, which made a very big difference. So we approached some schools and we provided incentive of $500 for the participating schools for them to use in any school activities. And so the way that works is like we will create like a little lesson plan for the schools to incorporate it in their classroom learning. So the schools normally have like a class for wellness class, and they'll incorporate this, they'll introduce the students about the community inside, like a little video that we showed. And then after that, they'll have the students do the survey in class. So that made a very big difference in our responses. And on the previous wave, we got up to 365, which the 300 was through the school engagement. So yeah, that way we actually managed to try to increase the youth participation in our surveys so that our data is more representative across the community. So that's one of our ways that we've been trying to improve. Yeah, and that's about it.
Thanks, Eski and Sope. And I think, you know, the takeout there is clearly the numbers that go from about 300 respondents in the old process to over, you know, 2,000 respondents, you know, through this process. So, and reaching in people in a whole range of different ways. So I think there's definitely things, even if councils who don't have dedicated research teams and that sort of thing, how difficult do you think it would be to do this sort of surveying, or do you or to adapt what they do in terms of community surveys to this frame? That's a question, sorry. How difficult was it really, is what I'm asking, to go from what you used to do to doing it this way? And thinking about the resource implications.
Would you like to answer that, Sop, or do you want me to?
You can go ahead.
Yeah. Look, I think in terms of the questionnaire design, we actually, my understanding is we've always been quite involved in that, and there's different parts of the organisation that feed into that. So it does take a bit of effort to actually get a system up and running, but once you do, it's once you have the survey questions designed, and we would be happy to share ours as well, by the way, if that's helpful to anyone in neighbouring councils, because we are keen to benchmark and have some data that we can, cross-check. So that please, if you want that, reach out to us. We're happy to help. But yeah, once you kind of have that and you have the systems in place, it's pretty straightforward. It's just rolling it out each time. I think what we've been trying to do, where we've been lucky with the resourcing that we have, is that we continuously try to improve it. So we always look at what we've done that can be done better, who we haven't reached that we can reach in a different way. So we're always testing new things. I think that becomes the quite resource intensive part of it. Yeah.
Yeah, and a question from Claudia is what platform is being used for the survey? But my understanding is that you kind of, what you were saying is that it's a bit multi-method in that sense, and not any one particular platform. Is that right?
No, in terms of, I'll take this one. In terms of the platform, we use Survey Manager. So even though in our method we have we through mail out. So even with the mail out, they'll receive a QR code and either a QR code or a link where they can scan it, but that takes them to the digital survey.
Right.
Yeah. So, and if they receive an email, it's just a matter of just clicking the link, which takes you to the same digital survey. But because this was a random sample, we have a unique code for each resident that received a letter or an email, so that they can't do it again. So that it's just through it's a digital survey. But then apart from that, we do get residents called through. Because we have customer service calling through, and if they want to do the survey, like some elderly customers, they would prefer to do the survey over the phone. In that case, we would we'll just open up the survey in our system, and then we'll do the survey over the phone with them.
Sure.
Yeah.
So survey manager, is that?
Survey manager, yeah.
Survey manager. I'm just going to write that one in there.
Yeah.
I think that. I think the other point that you made about, where people couldn't do it, couldn't use the digital space, it sort of links back to something that Jane had said about when people can, need assistance to do the online stuff, they tend to turn up at the local library. So again, that sort of resource of local government to have local libraries, serves a really important purpose there as well, to connect that, to enable people to use that digital space. Claudia has a follow-up question. When done over the phone, do they need a supply code? To supply a code?
Yes. So in the letter that they receive, there'll be an 8-digit unique code, which we highlighted for them. So when they call through, they just have to give us that 8-digit number, and then we'll be able to find the survey, which is linked to them online on the system for them. Yeah.
Right. Okay, I'm just answering that one for that one. Sorry. Now, Samir has asked, is there the potential for some of the community survey material to be shared with developers prior to them developing new master planned estates within your local government area? And that way they may have more of an idea of what infrastructure to provide or how to better strengthen the social fabric in their communities. Have you done anything like that where you're connecting with the developers of some of the estate, sort of all greenfield development?
Yeah, so from our side, we haven't. We're more focused on surveying existing community and the population that's in our municipality. But I do understand that and we've got quite a few of our urban planners, I think, on the call as well. But there has been they often engage with developers around what kind of infrastructure is expected in those greenfield developments. But yeah, I think we can take an action to share some of these toolkits with them as well after this, because there's a bit on places as well from the research that Jane has done.
Right, and Shruti has asked, do you have a pen and paper survey as well as the completely digital one? Can actually people use the pen and paper? Some of us oldies.
Not at this stage. We try to develop a paper questionnaire for them, but because of the logic, in terms of the flow and the logic with the skip and jumps that are there, it was very challenging for us to do a paper survey. So even there were customers that actually come through the office and want to request for a paper survey, in which case one of us researchers in the office, we just go out and just do the survey together with them. So that has always been working well like that for now.
Yeah, sure. From council is probably the better way to, from council officer is the better way to go. What are you saying with those people who kind of need kind of more assistance than to simply, it's more difficult to use just the pen and paper survey. Yeah. So I'm just responding to the questions.
That's fine. I think
people just go scroll through the thing.
Did we do it once? So okay, I feel like there was one person who wanted a printout.
Yeah, we tried it once, but because of the logic and flow, it becomes a very lengthy paper survey. Because we do have to even the jumps and skips, we have to include everything because we don't know what the response is going to be. So yeah, it didn't really work.
And what about then going back to Bronwyn's question about connecting with people from different cultural and linguistic backgrounds?
So we do have the survey translated into 10, we usually have 13 languages, and now we kind of reduced it to 10 because we find that some of the languages were not used. So our languages were based on the English level proficiency in our municipality. So we offer the translated survey in 10 different languages. And I think in our last way, we find that around 100 responses were used the translated version. Wow, and there is also they can also call through the translator service, the translation number. And I think with the current wave that we're running now, we've actually got 5 people who call through with the translator to do the survey over the phone. So that's kind of been helpful as well.
Yeah, no, that's a good response.
Yeah.
Bronwyn's asking, what of both of you or any other of the Whittlesea officers, what are your thoughts on how much community insights has influenced the way council delivers services? So yeah, so looking at then, okay, we've gathered all this information, what do we do with it, and then how do we convey what we do with it back to our communities? Probably I would add to that question.
Yeah, it's a good one. I think we've been socializing the responses back with the team. We haven't collected feedback on how that's informed the decision making yet. So it's something that PA and some other people in our research team have been discussing and talking about capturing. What we found to be the most beneficial, to be honest, when we do test engagement with new cohorts, such as the youth cohort, we found that there's been flow-on effects for those teams to better engage for their services. So the partnership with the schools has led to more partnerships for the youth teams with schools on other areas, such as program delivery in those schools. So we've seen a direct benefit through that. But in terms of evaluating how they're informing delivery of services, we haven't yet gone back and got that feedback from the teams. I know they collect the data, they ask for it, they seem to be using it, but we're not sure how exactly they're using it.
Just to add on that, so for now, one of our questions that, because I've been trying to collect like how the data has been used and being good for other departments as well. And one of the feedback that I got was for the affordable housing team. So we had some questions around affordable housing, and they needed to report something. So and we got a really great feedback saying like the survey kind of uncovers some significant gap in the public understanding of what actually is affordable housing. So those things, and they were also like used to for their like project evidence based with they were able to give like qualitative insights as well. And they mentioned that the results will be used for shaping their short and medium long-term plans going forward as well.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And then Michelle's asked have there been any insights, because you're doing this sort of like as a rolling survey now? I guess one of the main benefits is being able to see change over time. Michelle's asking, have there been any insights that you've noticed in regards to sort of a desire for increased community connections? So looping back to the sorts of things that Jane was talking about, or the flip side with the loneliness question that you've included, have you sort of noticed any trends yet, or is it a little bit too soon?
So yeah, so we've only collected for 1 year, so it's a bit too early on to say. I think next following year we will repeat some of the questions, and that's why we will be able to show some trends and if things are changing and stuff like that. So for now, we've only done like 1 year of the community insight, so it's a bit too soon to say.
Yeah, and we have 2 waves. One's currently still live, but the one that's just been complete, we're just waiting for the data on that as well. So we don't have a point-to-point comparison for any of the themes either.
So there isn't sort of like a one question note that that sits in there in each of the waves, or not?
There are a couple that are repeated. I think there are some that are yearly, so you can probably speak more to this.
Yes,
some that are 2 years.
Yeah, so the questions that we require for annual reporting, for our annual reporting purpose, so there are some questions. I think there are 8 questions that we tend to repeat every year, and the other questions, which are for the measures, are repeated every 2 years. So I think next year we will start trying to collect the ones that were from the first year again.
Might at this point open that up to Jane as well, to make any comments on if she's received feedback on in terms of the even though it's your early days, what would you be thinking, like have any comment about how it's progressing and what to expect, I suppose?
Can I answer it and then ask Eske and Sophie a question? It's just a bit complicated to put in the chat. Okay, so have we received feedback on use of the social connection toolkit? I guess, look, the Social Connection 101 has been around for quite a long time, and I've met with a number of people who've used it for different things, all across Australia, to be honest. We had political parties who were using it to inform their manifestos at times about what they should do about social connection. We've had volunteering groups who've used it to inform how to, I guess, onboard new volunteers and using it as a kind of educational pack. We've had, as I mentioned, there's a lot of people we know who've used some of the tools in discussions with communities, including multicultural communities and different kinds of communities. And then since production of the full toolkit, well, we know that some of the partners in the project are making quite intensive use of some of the tools, like Nimai is using the tools that it produced. So one of them is a tool for using with individuals to talk about their social connection journey. And another one is that I didn't talk about is for actual services so it sort of flips the like, okay, I'm a person, how do I get social connection, where do I go? It's for the services, and it's kind of like, you're a service, how do you help people to become more socially connected? How do you be less scary to people? How do you be more out there, kind of thing? Yeah, and there's a whole bunch of other things as well. It was another tool which is about how different parts of the organization have all got a relationship with producing social connection locally. And so we know that people have used that in kind of away days and things like that to talk about how they can work more closely together and in less siloed ways. So yeah, there's kind of like bits of feedback starting to come in. It's a really good point. I haven't gone out and sort of chased to find out how people are using it. We've had a lot of interest from like Vic Health, and I had a chat with Mav the other day. Don't know what relationship you have with them, but different councils and things like the Social Inclusion Action Group in Victoria and the Aging Well initiative across Victoria. So there's been, I guess, a lot of interest in finding out more, or kind of this kind of situation actually, where different members want to know more about using it and what's there. Can I ask my question now?
Yes, Jane, ask your question, and then there's a question from Beth, and then we'll open up if people want to put up their hands and join in the discussion for about another 10 minutes.
I'm really
so Jane, your question first.
Yeah, I'm really interested to know at what, so if you across your suburb are able to find out if different parts of the area are, for example, with the neighbours or with loneliness, if there are kind of outliers or hotspots and not spots of, loneliness or not loneliness, or neighbourliness and not neighbourliness, and are you able to then map that to the social connection infrastructure that's actually there, such that, you'd be able to go, oh, these people are much more socially isolated and there's no place for them to go that they wouldn't have to jump in their car? Or I just, I would really like to know if there's some facility to do things like that, in maybe not now, but in the future.
I think that's a holy grail, but it would be great. What do you think, Eski? So, have you looked at it geographically?
Yeah, we do have the suburb breakdown in the data. I'm not sure off the top of our heads if we have the trends by suburb. I don't know if you've got that sitting in your
but yes, we do have the filter by suburb, so we can filter it by suburb. But I'm just trying to say,
yeah. While you look at that, I do think it's a great point, Jane, like looking at the infrastructure and looking at, those scores and kind of weaving that into the narrative around why we need more community infrastructure effectively. But we do also have an additional layer to that, the travel times for everyday activities that residents experience. So we do know in our growth areas, that's quite significant. It kind of gets in the way of other social connection activities and time for those activities. But yeah, I think that's definitely something we could explore.
When we were doing our project, planners in particular kept asking us, like, is there some benchmarks? Like, what do you actually need to have at what scale to kind of tick off on, we've done what we need to do for social connection. We were just like, wow. I mean, to us, that was like, that would be amazing, but we didn't manage to do that in the project. We did
No,
some of that mapping.
it is sort of like another step, and you know, from that social infrastructure to connect up then with the social outcomes is you know, like another whole piece of work, which very interesting to pursue that, and I think the sort of information that councils gather through these processes, and if they were to apply the social connection toolkits and some of those questions as well, could open up a really important source of information about what those connections are between the actual design of places plus the actual outcomes and the variations that are in between. It reminds me of like, you know, the importance of having walkable places, and as I said, like the libraries as a space that's, you know, both digital and physical in terms of, you know, opportunity. It provides both digital and physical opportunities for connection, but the walkable places where people can bump into each other. I was thinking definitely not car parks. No, if people are all in their cars, you don't want them bumping. So I think that's a really interesting one that we could probably continue to explore.
I can probably share my screen if you want to quickly have a look.
Sure.
I share my screen.
Yep.
Yes. Can you see this screen? I'll make it a bit bigger. So this is kind of like our Power BI dashboard where like we can, like in terms of the questions that we were showing before, you can filter it by suburb. So you can see like Beveridge is a newly developed suburb. So there are more strongly disagree compared to other more developed suburbs in terms of the relationship with the neighbors and stuff like that.
Which brings me to a question by Beth then. Which is, what analysis software tools do you use? And obviously Power BI is one of them.
Power BI, yes.
But is that the only one, or do you percolate the data in the first instance in another way?
So I'll stop sharing this for now. And so yes, so we clean the data. Normally when we export the data, we'll have an Excel spreadsheet, and we'll start cleaning the data through Excel. But through the analysis, it's mainly Power BI.
Power BI. Okay, great. That's very clever. That's what I think. That's great. Any other questions before we go to winding to our wrap up? Bronwyn says it'd be interesting to overlay the community insights with the observatory and Australian Observatory Growth Livability Scorecards, which we commissioned last year. And if anybody was interested in that previous webinar where we talked about our scorecards, that is exactly kind of in our thinking for future research in terms of, okay, we've got some data about where social infrastructure is now, and councils are collecting potentially data about social connections and social outcomes. Can we bring it together? Which I think is a really important research question to take forward. So that's a really good comment. Thanks, Bronwyn. But I think if there is no other questions or nobody's got their hand up, I can't see. I think we'll just go to the wrap up, and thank you very much, Eski, Sope and Jane. And thank you to everyone who's still online. I think it's been a really valuable discussion. And we do have a feedback. I think the slide before, Michelle. Oh no, is it this one or is it the next one? I'll let Michelle finish off by telling you about how you can stay involved and keep connected. And we do have, I'll just make a mention that we do also have in the NGAA, we have a research reference group, for want of a better group, and we will continue to explore some of these ideas that have been brought up. I highly recommend having a look at the Social Connections suite of tools and toolkit, and certainly the Whittlesea Community Insights for being inspired about how we can create better connections in our communities and also connect with our communities to help us plan them better as well. But I'll hand over now to Michelle, who's been doing all the technology. He's in our digital space, which I just leave alone. I'll just pick up my pen and make notes. To round up and say thank you again to everybody. Michelle.
Thanks, Anne. And look, I'll join with Anne again by thanking Professor Jane and Dr. Sopay and Ezgi for joining us. And we trust that you got so much out of that, and we hope you enjoyed the discussions and that the content was thought-provoking for you, because it was certainly thought-provoking for me. I was taking tons of notes. And so before I let you guys go, I just wanted to share a few ways of how you can stay connected with us, the National Growth Areas Alliance. So firstly, we would love for you to sign up to our e-newsletter. We've got the QR code that you see on the screen there, but I've also just going to pop the links in the chat there as well. So signing up to our e-newsletter is the best way that you can stay across all of our latest research, the events that we have coming up, and our advocacy work. And then secondly, we have a really exciting event coming up at the end of July. It's our annual Congress, and this year it's being held in Perth in WA, and the theme is the future of growth areas. And the themes that we'll be discussing include future economies, future communities, and future councils. So more information is available at our website. And again, you can scan the QR code or click the link that you can see in the chat. And then finally, we really love your feedback. Please take a moment to complete a short survey. Again, you can see the QR code. There's a link in the chat. I'll also share the link in a follow-up email. Your input really helps us to improve our future sessions and to deliver content that's relevant for you. A recording will be sent out after the session, and that can be shared across your teams. If there's someone that you think that this content would be really relevant for, we would love for you to share the recording with them. So that's it from us, everyone. Thank you so much for coming, for spending your time with us today, and we look forward to seeing you at a future NGAA event.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Michelle.
Jane and Ezgi and Sopay. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much.